And ladies and gentlemen, my name is Arcane Static, and welcome back to Tales from the Table. Is that what we're calling it? I forget. Which is where I tell you stories about things that have happened in the D&D campaign that I'm playing in. Well, when last we left our heroes, the party was actually pretty small. There were 2 priests and a bard. What could go wrong with a party like that? Well, Atlas the Bard and Ezrith the Healer had been off to Berry Isle to deal with the problem of the magical haunted storm that had been destroying the fishing industry in the area. But what did that leave Essy doing? Well, for that to make sense, we have to first look at who Essy really is. Essy is a war priest who can buff her allies, deal lots of damage, and repair wounds. She's a priest of the goddess Bast, the cat goddess of cats and vengeance. Essy is actually accompanied by a spiritual projection of Bast most of the time, in the form of a house cat that's invisible to everyone but her. So she looks crazy quite often. But anyway, she does her duty to Bast in every city she comes to by setting up like a little shrine to her, using fresh fish or mice or any other stuff that cats like to eat. I don't know. But she'd been tending to her shrine in Sara, the port city that the party had been staying in for a couple days now. Now, Atlas and Ezrith skittled off to go fight ghosts during one of the times when Essy was busy with her religious preening. And every day, Essy would buy some fish, and then wander around the market square looking for stray cats, which she'd then feed and, by proxy, gain favor from Bast. On that day, however, there were no strays around. Curious as to where her people had gone, Essy asked one of the merchants around if they'd seen any cats. "No, and good riddance. Those pests have been nothing but trouble ever since they started showing up more and more a few days back." Another merchant had little more to say on the matter. I seen them, all going to hell where they belong. Blasted vermin stealing my goods. Old man Henderson's taking good care of them. Someone in the merchant square had hired a gentleman by the name of Henderson to exterminate these pests. Horrified, Essy began her search for the criminal, which it wasn't long until she found him, with a cat's corpse in one hand and a heavy metal ladle like a soup ladle in the other hand. And by his feet there was a suspiciously lumpy-looking sack. Essy confronted him with his crimes, and he explained to the best of his senile ability. "They hired me to get rid of the pests. It's what I'm good at, you know. Find one, catch it, club it, put it in the sack. They're paying me 3 silver a head." He smiled his old man only partially toothed smile, then added the straw that broke the war priest's back. "Man's gotta have a hobby, you know." With an imposing voice, Essy used her magic to command the man to kneel, and then uppercut him in the jaw, raising her voice to accuse him of his crimes against Bast, the goddess of getting really angry at wrongs being done. Just then, though, a Sara guardsman came across the scene in this back alley where it was happening. The guard and Essy had a brief but firm conversation, where Essy flashed her badge and told the guardsman that she was apprehending a criminal, nay, a murderer. The guardsman replied that it was not okay to kill someone because of their crimes they've committed before they're judged, and that she'd ought not to lay another hand on him. She promised she wouldn't, and he left the scene, uneasy but informed that Essy had it under control. As soon as she was alone with Henderson again, she kept her promise not to lay a hand on him, and kicked him in the chest. Her eyes still in a red-hazed fury, she stormed out of the alleyway, blood still on her knuckles, and offhandedly told one of the merchants to call help for that monster. The man died almost instantly. He was an old man, and she was wearing metal boots. The guard was quickly alerted, and without much difficulty, Essy was located and seized by the captain of the guard, Captain Slate. She argued that an eye for an eye wasn't even paid for by just this one man's death, that he'd murdered so many citizens. He was a menace to society. This man killed children living in Sara as free citizens and had their corpses stuffed into a big bag in the alleyway. When it became clear that the children and the citizens that she'd been speaking about were stray cats, she was without question taken to the guardhouse and imprisoned to wait judgment and punishment. Atlas and Ezrith arrived on the scene just as she'd been dragged away by the other guard and went to the mayor's house to find out just what had happened. Captain Slate was there and explained that she'd kicked a man to death in an alleyway for catching and killing stray cats. She was to be stripped of her position as inspector and, as per the judgment she received, was to be executed. So Ezrith and Atlas left the house and immediately began trying to hatch a plan for getting Essy out of prison and to safety, a plan which they knew would definitely result in all three of them never being able to return to Sara. The first thing was to hear the story from Essy's side, which wasn't easy. Ezrith and Atlas made themselves up to be like a priest and an acolyte coming to offer the condemned a chance for penance before their death. They made it inside the compound, and Essy was called into like this blank, nondescript room where they had a chance to get the real story, which was exactly as Slate had explained it, but with a little bit more "Bast will not stand for this" involved. Okay, plan part the second. Get her out of prison and get away. According to the warden, we'd actually been given incorrect information, and she wasn't to be executed, just imprisoned indefinitely. So Atlas and Ezrith began to leave, promising that they'd get her out, when suddenly a figure from the past burst into the room. It was Lucian, the elvish rogue who'd stopped adventuring to become a merchant when her player had to go back to New York for school. Hurrying inside, Lucian made a big show of the fact that he was Essy's lawyer and was there to negotiate a plea bargain. But to our knowledge, Lucian wasn't a lawyer, just an unscrupulous business partner who liked to cheat people out of money. Taking Essy aside, he produced a contract several pages long, which the GM, by the way, had actually written, printed, and given to Essy's player. Now, just sign on the line and you'll be out of here like nobody's business. Of course, there's the bail money and fees to be had as well, but... As he signed the contract before reading the whole thing, and just like that, they were hustled out of prison, all four of them. Now Lucian, a very busy man, handed Essy a bank key and explained that her first payment was due and that the invoice would be in the bank box. And just like that, Lucian was gone. Essy owed Lucian something like 15,000 gold, with an interest rate that would give any big businessman a hard-on. It was only several sessions later that Essy, curious about something in the contract now that she'd had some time to sit down and read it, asked Atlas to take a look at it, where he found that Essy had co-signed him into the debt as well, without his consent or knowledge. Essy was back, she and Atlas were now in horrible debt, and Sara was a place they probably ought not to stay in any longer. So Essy talked with the Thieves Guild on the way out of the city to ask for their services in erasing her bad reputation and replacing it with a better one, but the party left Sara and have not been back since. How has this new reputation affected the party? Who will end up paying for the debt? What does Bast think about the whole thing? Find out in another episode of Stories from the Table! Oh, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this little story. If you did, the like and subscribe buttons are waiting just below this video to exterminate some cats and get kicked to death in an alleyway. You can also follow my socials, that's the Facebook and Twitter that are in the description box, and maybe throw some support my direction at the Patreon link that's there as well. Look forward to a couple new projects in the future, and I will see you next time. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks. Before you guys go, please do remember to go down into the comments and tell me what time of day and day of week and all of that you guys would like to see this D&D type podcast broadcast thing that we're going to be doing in the future. Let us know, like, what kind of stuff do you want to see on a D&D stream? Because, I mean, obviously we'll be playing the game and having witty banter and doing comedic things as well. But, like, is there something that you wish that you saw in other D&D streams or shows like that one that you don't see that maybe we could do? Something maybe like a player interaction feature where you guys could help with like you guys would have a direct line to the GM and be able to give him suggestions for NPCs or something like that. What do you guys want to see for it? Go ahead and let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. See ya.